Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into what is essentially a real-life medical detective story. We're investigating a totally silent health crisis that's currently affecting mothers and their unborn babies. Specifically, we're going to unpack the KCLEIP study. This is some truly groundbreaking research coming out of Nigeria that's uncovering exactly how heavy metals are just slipping right into the diets of pregnant women. Let's dive right in, because honestly, the sheer scale of this problem demands our attention. 400, over 400 children tragically died from lead poisoning in just a single region, Kebbi State, Nigeria. And we really need to wrap our heads around this. This isn't some historical data from a century ago. It's a present, ongoing danger. We are dealing with a toxin that literally devastates communities in total silence. And the absolute first step to stopping it is understanding its reach. The scope of this invisible threat is just staggering. To put this into perspective, data from Lagos, Nigeria, reveals that 75.6% of mothers tested, that's 3 out of every 4 moms, had blood lead levels beyond 5 micrograms per deciliter, and that is the threshold for adverse health effects. Even more alarming, 66.8% of umbilical cord blood exceeded this limit too. Lead poisoning is a massive, widely unrecognized source of harm, and it is hiding right in plain sight. So you're probably wondering, what exactly is causing this silent epidemic among mothers in Nigeria? Like, how in the world are so many pregnant women being exposed to such a well-known toxin without anybody realizing it? Well, to solve this, researchers had to look way past your standard environmental factors. They had to dig deep into the daily, deeply personal lives of these mothers. Okay, Section 1, a toxic cultural remedy. Let's look at the surprising culprit behind the crisis. So, the prime suspect in our mystery is Kaolin. It's also known locally as calabash chalk or azu. Now, consuming this clay is a practice called geophagia, and it's actually incredibly common. We're talking 17% to 60% of pregnant women across West Africa, and even in migrant communities abroad, taking part in this. And it's so important that we approach this with empathy, right? These mothers are just participating in a deeply ingrained cultural tradition, genuinely trying to do what they think is best for their developing babies. But here is the heartbreaking paradox at the center of the KCLEIP study. The cultural belief is that consuming Kaolin prevents morning sickness, helps with dyspepsia, and just generally improves pregnancy outcomes. It's meant to be a soothing remedy. But the scientific reality is starkly different. Kaolin contains high levels of lead, anywhere from 10 to 50 milligrams per kilogram, which vastly exceeds food safety limits. So instead of soothing, this exposure is actually causing miscarriages, severe anemia, and absolutely devastating organ damage. And crucially, the danger doesn't just stop with the mother. Lead seamlessly crosses the placental barrier. That means it exposes the unborn baby to the exact same toxins. And it gets worse. If the mother has high lead levels, the newborn continues to be exposed through breast milk. The toxin essentially hitches a ride, following the child from the womb out into the world. This essentially builds into a generational crisis. Early and chronic exposure to lead in a developing fetus has just catastrophic impacts. We're looking at severe learning difficulties, low IQ, profound behavioral abnormalities, low birth weight, and tragically, even fetal death. It permanently alters a child's neurological development before they even take their first breath. This devastating cascade effect is exactly why researchers knew an urgent solution was needed. Moving on to Section 2, investigating the danger. Let's break down the KCLEIP study methodology. The researchers are basically using every tool in the scientific playbook to understand both the biology and behavior behind this crisis. Step 1, questionnaires. They're recruiting 360 pregnant women just to establish the exact prevalence of Kaolin consumption. Step 2 is cohort tracking. They follow these women closely from the second trimester all the way through delivery. And Step 3 involves focus groups. They're sitting down with mothers and community leaders to map out the cultural motivations and figure out the barriers to stopping the practice. To truly isolate the effects of the clay, the researchers set up a really rigorous comparison. They're tracking 300 Kaolin consumers side by side with 300 non-consumers, and they are systematically collecting biological clues to map this whole crisis out. We're talking maternal blood, cord blood at delivery, breast milk, alongside urine, and the actual Kaolin samples. They are documenting every single variable, literally leaving no stone unturned. Which brings us to Section 3, solving the testing problem. This is essentially the holy grail for lead screening. Think about it. Even if you unequivocally prove Kaolin is dangerous, how do you actually find the women who need help out in rural or low-income areas?
The massive logistical puzzle here is this. How do we easily screen for lead without drawing blood? Drawing blood requires needles, trained phlebotomists, cold storage, complex lab equipment, the whole shebang. Relying solely on blood tests means the most vulnerable people simply will never get tested.
So the proposed solution is a total paradigm shift. On one side, you have blood testing. Sure, it's the gold standard, but it's highly invasive and super resource heavy. On the other side, you have urine testing. It's completely non-invasive, incredibly easy to collect, and requires way fewer resources. The KCLEIP study is hunting for a rock-solid, scientifically undeniable correlation between lead in maternal blood and lead in maternal urine.
To figure this out, they're using some pretty advanced statistical science called ROC analysis. They want to determine if simple urine tests can reliably flag dangerous blood lead levels over 55 micrograms per deciliter. If this works, it completely changes the game. It would create the exact same kind of simplified, highly accessible point-of-care test we already use for conditions like preeclampsia, but specifically tailored for lead poisoning.
All right, Section 4, Global Impact and Next Steps. Let's see how this data changes everything.
This really brings us to the final verdict of our explainer. Because this study, it's not just some abstract academic exercise. It is generating immediate, actionable evidence. This data will directly support robust antenatal counseling and launch targeted lead screening. It essentially hands the government the hard data they need to regulate contaminated kaolin and design interventions that are actually culturally acceptable. It's literally going to be directly guiding Nigeria's 2024 national policy on lead poisoning. The study's own framework perfectly captures the stakes here. They state, the project will contribute to the global fight against lead poisoning by addressing critical gaps in measurement and monitoring of lead exposure. And while this is focused on Nigeria right now, the implications are absolutely global. It provides a real foundation for affordable screening tools that could eventually be integrated into maternal care all over the world.
I want to leave you with this final, somewhat provocative thought. You really cannot solve a biological crisis without understanding the human behavior driving it. So, can understanding deeply ingrained local culture be the true key to unlocking massive global health solutions? By treating cultural traditions with respect while applying rigorous modern science, we might just find the blueprint to saving thousands of lives. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and as always, keep questioning the world around you.